All right, thanks, Gary. So before we get into the slides, I just want to make kind of two quick comments. So you kicked off the presentation talking about, I think it's the culture and the goal, right, of TidalScale of hitting wow. So I've been in the industry, just about 20 years now, responsible for a pretty sizable book of business at Dell, and there's few things that hit me as wow. So when I kind of became engaged with you and Shri and others at TidalScale through a partner, that truly hit me with the wow. I've been talking about TidalScale internal with my teams, external with partners and customers, because this is something that has wowed me, and I haven't had a wow in a long time in the industry. The second thing I'll point out, this is a very unusual experience for me. Usually when I'm presenting on behalf of Dell, I'm standing between customers and drinks. So being able to actually now present after the drinks is a very welcome experience. So thank you for that. So getting right into it, Paul just went and, Paul represents the #1 server in the public cloud, and Dell represents the #1 server in the private cloud, right? So on premise, and it's built upon our PowerEdge platform, industry leading for many years, #1 in both units shipped and in revenue. And we have that success really building around this idea of PowerEdge being your innovation engine. It's also our innovation, but really what we're trying to lean into is anything that's being created or developed, whether it's the high value workloads we've already talked about, or the other things that you as our customers are developing and building, you are innovating on top of a compute platform. So we try to drive for that with a kind of a 3-pillared kind of strategy. Really, it's adaptive compute. So what do we mean by adaptive compute? It's not the adaptiveness that TidalScale brings by kind of adapting to failures and bringing all over the place. We touched on Moore's law being dead and not growing, doubling speed year over year. So innovation is happening in compute platforms very, very rapidly, from things like GPUs, brand new PCIe devices, all of these componentries that are be adding to a server platform. You can't wait a year, 2 years, 3 years to bring those into an environment and certify them to run in a production way. So we've built our engineering to optimize change within our server platforms and drive consistency and stability while still supporting that change. A great example might be a GPU, like I already mentioned. They can release, we can have them qualified and on the truck platforms within weeks. So really supporting everything that our customer needs in order to drive innovation. One of the ones I really focus on for the sake of time, right, is this idea of proactive resilience. Security is becoming more and more important in everything that we do, whether it's online, offline, from outside threats, inside threats, right, state-led threats, ransomware, and things of that nature are taking over. It's one of the biggest buzzwords that's out there. And we build the PowerEdge platform to account for security and vulnerability capabilities from the supply chain all the way through it up and running in a customer's data center. So matching with keys, the firmware installs as they leave the factory to when they're deployed on premise, to actually detecting and rooting out kind of those attacks and vulnerabilities once they're up and running. So really focusing around driving something that's adaptable, autonomous, and safe, right? And it's led to a lot of success. Like I mentioned, #1 in revenue, #1 in shipments. A factoid that Alan Klingerman, who's on with us from my team, has tossed out there is we ship 4 servers every minute on average, right? So a lot out there. Next slide, Gary. So this is our family tree, similar to what Paul showed before. His are virtual, ours are physical, although some of his are physical. And as Gary mentioned, kind of the normal path for server architecture is to pick a server to fit your workload. And then if you outgrow that server, right, you need to pick a new server or replatform or migrate or kind of go through a painful physical expansion. And we have a large family of servers here to range from those small capabilities that you may need to something that's more specialized, like GPU optimized, or 4-socket servers for high value workloads. And with the R7 50 being one of the industry leading storages out there, is one of those industry building blocks that Gary mentioned that you can bring in as a standard platform across all things within your data center and leverage the capabilities of something like TidalScale to leverage that industry standard capabilities to grow into something more dynamic and scalable to support growing high value workloads like the data analytics, like SAP HANA, et cetera. But it's not just the technology that is a great fit with TidalScale. It's also the financial mechanisms. Next slide, Gary. So AWS set the standard for what it means to purchase infrastructure as a service. What we'd like to think is that Dell is on the way to set the standard of what infrastructure on-premise looks like as a service. Traditionally, you would need to buy a server upfront, multiple servers to take advantage of the hot swap capability that Gary just demonstrated with TitleGuard. We have our traditional financial services, leasing, different financial capabilities to extend those costs over time. But what we've recently announced, and if you've seen some of our commercials out there, it's Apex. And what is Apex? Apex really is Dell's all-in strategy to match an as-a-service subscription or usage-based consumption model across our entire portfolio. Next slide, Gary. And we really have kind of two capabilities around that. We've got what we call our cloud services, which are fixed configurations that are really specific to more generalized workloads. And then we've got our Apex custom solutions, which I'll touch on more in a little bit, that allows you complete flexibility to bring in anything within our portfolio, including that broad family of servers that I just showed on our family tree, to come in and support a high value workload or dynamic capabilities with TidalScale. Next slide, Gary. So one of the custom solutions that we offer as a part of Apex, we call Flex on Demand, or FOD for short. And this financial model, I think, really fits well with the capabilities of TidalScale. As Gary mentioned, the capabilities are based on a subscription, but it's also growth for expansion, right? Having hot swappable physical servers on standby to take advantage of the power of TidalGuard. You can actually build those into your financial configuration. So very simple selection criteria to get the infrastructure that you need, and very quick pricing over the life of the contract, and you only pay for what you use. Let's look at a quick example, right? So here I've selected server as, you know, kind of one of the options. Again, you can do almost our entire portfolio this way. You can pick whatever your usage initial capacity is. We call that a committed capacity, and then you can select your buffer capacity. So you can build out a small initial workload with a low commit, but have a lot of infrastructure deployed sitting there for growth or for that reactive adaptability. And then we have a varying term. So if you have a short-term application or a short-term workload need, maybe you might be deciding on, am I going to deploy this infrastructure in the future in my data center, in a partner data center like a co-location, or out inside of AWS? We have as little as 12 months and all the way up to 5 years in a 60-month contract if you know this is going to be a business critical application that's going to reside inside of your data center for years to come. And then, you know, you can then choose to grow over time. So when you expand to grow with that application, if you add new applications to it, you can bring those servers online and pay for them truly as you use them. And it's near real time. So you can have them up and available and then bring them into the TidalScale environment and start paying for them as you use them. So the financial capabilities align great with TidalScale. And of course, the technical capabilities align with TidalScale. Next slide, Gary. So in summary, this is my slide to capture what I may have missed when talking about the prior slides, but also highlighting very specifically where TidalScale and PowerEdge within the Dell family of technologies really goes better together. You really don't need to buy those large, costly, right, unadaptive, rigid infrastructures and bring into the environment. You can build on industry building block servers and add 2 nines of availability to industry standard building block capabilities. The best in breed, high available PowerEdge servers, right, are innovative, but take advantage of that unique TidalScale capabilities to grow and capture those high-end workloads. And then you can consume, like I mentioned, just with Apex, the entire private cloud data center in your way, right? Via the Apex all usage-based model, or buy them outright, right? If you know that you're going to be using all of those capabilities in the environment. So really just to summarize, Dell PowerEdge TidalScale is just, it makes the best better, and it's a better together story.